Is your relationship communication frustrating you? In this video, we'll break down warning signs of poor or unhealthy communication and how to recognize when things need to change. So let's get real about what's holding you back, shall we? You're welcome to today's episode of Finding Love. I am Grace Renner, your host. Finding Love is a relationship and marriage show that instills the right foundation for marriage with the understanding that marriage is God's idea. It is a show for anyone who is looking to get married or already married and looking to do marriage the way God has designed it. So you're welcome. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do well to subscribe right now. Right there on the right side of your phone, just tap the subscribe button and you'll be a part of this community. I'll be happy to have you join us. And then also like this video, share it, leave me a comment. I'd love to see your comments. Thank you very much. Now, for about 2 weeks, we started a series on communication. And we've talked about the importance of communication. We've talked about factors that contribute to poor communication in relationships. And today, we'll be talking about how to identify if the communication in your relationship is poor or unhealthy. Now, the goal behind today's video is to help you gauge your relationship, to help you gauge the communication in your relationship. So let's get right into it, shall we? Identifying poor or unhealthy communication in your relationship is crucial to conflict resolution and could also help to foster the bond between you and your partner. So here are some signs to know if the relationship or the communication rather in your relationship is poor or unhealthy. Number one, frequent misunderstandings. Now, when you and your partner or you or your partner are always misunderstanding each other's intent or words is a sign that the communication in the relationship is poor. Now, let me give you some quick solutions. Number one, listen intently. Okay, I realize that when we listen to each other intently, when we listen to other people intently, we realize that sometimes we're saying the same things. Okay, so let me give you a personal example. So when I went for premarital counseling, the couple who counseled us told us that there was a time they were having heated argument, and one day they just decided to just be quiet and listen to each other. As they listened, they started laughing and laughing uncontrollably at each other. Why? Because they figured out that they were actually saying the same things or in different ways. And this is often how it is in relationships. If we listen intently, we'd realize that sometimes we are reiterating each other's words. It happens even in my marriage. Sometimes when I say something, my husband's like, I don't understand. He then says the same thing I said as his own point, and I'm like, yeah, we're saying the same thing. So this is one of the problems. So if we learn to listen intently, we realize that a lot of times we're saying the same thing. There will be no need for misunderstanding. There will be no need for misinterpretation. Okay. Another solution here is to forgive and forget past mistakes, past hurts, past offenses. Now, if you do not get past offenses, and you keep bringing them up in your relationship or during your conversations, it will be difficult, to enjoy the conversations. It will lead to misunderstandings, so you want to make sure that not only do you forgive and forget, also try not to bring them up during conversations. Okay. And also notice, the more you bring up past issues, it makes it difficult for you to trust each other. It makes it difficult for you to move forward. So you want to make sure that to avoid misunderstandings or misinterpretations or confusing your partner, don't bring up past wounds, don't bring up past issues. Let the past stay past. Okay. Another thing to look out for is personal filters. Sometimes when we say certain things or we're having conversations, we do not actually hear the other person. We hear our pain, we hear our trauma. So we have our own personal filters. So if you can identify, your personal filter, your trigger points, your what is causing the trauma, it will help to prevent misunderstandings. A lot of the times, we're not responding, especially if we've gone through certain things in the past that we haven't fully recovered from. When we hear certain things, it's more like a trigger than, maybe a compliment or an innocent statement. So sometimes our personal filters affect communication, leads to misunderstanding. So if you can identify those personal filters, get them out of the way, and listen to your partner for what they're saying, not what your mind is telling you they're saying, not what your trauma or your pain is telling you that they're saying. It will help to reduce misunderstanding, in communication. And to help us move forward to prevent misunderstandings and misinterpretations, we need to learn effective communication skills. Now, I've talked about it from the beginning of this series. I do not want to keep reiterating, but effective communication has to do with active listening, feedback, listening to understand as opposed to listening to reply and things like that. So if you haven't watched previous editions of this communication series, please do watch them. Anyway, so to help you move forward, effective communication skill is required. Patience is required during conversations, and understanding, giving yourself to understanding your partner is very important. One solution also is to make sure that you pay attention to selfishness. Now, selfishness is the opposite of love. Okay, you want to pay attention to selfishness. If we keep seeking our individual good in the relationship, it will keep causing misunderstandings and misinterpretations. But when we seek each other's good, when we pay attention to make sure that the other person, is equally satisfied, is equally heard, it will help to foster healthy communication in that relationship, to prevent misunderstandings and misinterpretations. So let's give ourselves to being selfless. We are one, we're not two anymore. The moment you partner with somebody, you become one with that person. So you do not have to only seek your own good. You have to look out for the other person's good. So let's pay attention, to selflessness, to being selfless in our relationships. Now I'm going to read this next scripture, and it will lead me into the next thing I want to say. Genesis chapter 11, verse 6. And the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." Now, I want to say this. Do not be ignorant of the devil's devices. Now, this is another solution. Be conscious, be sensitive, and not be ignorant, or to not be ignorant of the devil's devices. If the devil can mess up your communication, it can actually mess up your relationship. Sometimes the misunderstandings are not natural. You want to make sure that you are not responding to each other, based on what the devil is doing behind the scene. Okay. Now, there's something they say that if you go for in war, the way to win war is to mess up the other groups or troops' communication or their communication system. Once you can mess up their communication, you have won the war most times. Now, that is the strategy the devil uses. He tries to mess up the communication in a relationship so that he can gain victory over that relationship. So my advice is, do not be ignorant of the devil's devices. Sometimes just holding hands with your partner and praying before any conversation might really, really be very helpful, because you do not want to be misunderstood or misinterpreted, and you do not want to misunderstand or confuse your partner as well. So praying together just before having important conversations will drive away any unhealthy spirit or demonic forces around. Okay. And number two sign that your relationship might be experiencing poor or unhealthy communication is when you both or either of you are avoiding difficult conversations. Now, when you or your partner consistently avoids difficult or sensitive topics, is that an indication that the communication in your relationship is poor. And over time, when you keep avoiding sensitive topics or difficult issues, over time it causes the relationship to dwindle. Okay, it kills the joy, the zeal, and the seriousness in that relationship. So you want to make sure that you try your best to have difficult conversations. Try to get comfortable with discussing things that are uncomfortable. Okay, now I understand that there are several reasons why people run away from discussing difficult or having difficult conversations or sensitive topics. Now, I'm going to highlight them for us very quickly, so that you can identify yours or your partner's one, and then you can work on them. Okay. Now, some of these reasons people avoid sensitive issues or sensitive topics are fear of conflict. So, are you afraid of conflict arising in your relationship? Is that the reason like to have difficult conversations. Another reason is emotional vulnerability. Are you uncomfortable with being vulnerable with your partner? Okay. Or you might also want to look into it and find out why. Maybe it's a personal thing, or maybe it has to do with your partner. Sometimes the reason we avoid, being vulnerable with our partner might be something personal that we haven't dealt with. Or it might just be about our partner, maybe the way they handle our vulnerability. We might not feel safe in their hands. So what is your reason? Another thing could be fear of hurting their partner. Some people avoid difficult conversations because they do not want to hurt their partners. Another reason could be unresolved past issues. Do you have pending issues that you feel, is still heavy to talk about? Okay. Um, Avoidance of change. Some people do not like to change, but let me say this: the more you avoid or resist change, the more difficult you make things to become, the more problems you incur in that relationship. Okay, the more problems you cause for yourself. So you want to be open to change. Okay, change is inevitable. The more you avoid it, the more problems you cause. Now, is it because of lack of trust? Now, it might be a personal thing again, or because of your partner. Or could it be denial or minimization? Now, some people do not like to get involved in serious conversations because they feel their partner might be in denial or try to minimize their feelings or the impact of their actions. So this might be your reason. Okay. And lastly, it might be fear of rejection or abandonment. Some people are so afraid that if they confront their partners with the truth, their partners might walk away from the relationship. So what is your own reason, or what could be your partner's reason? I'd like for you to investigate and see how you people can work things out, to help to improve the communication in that relationship. Number three sign that might show that the communication in your relationship is poor or unhealthy is interrupting each other during conversations or one-sided communication. Now, when couples consistently interrupt each other during conversation or cut each other off during conversation, is a sign that relationship communication is not healthy. Okay, consistently cutting each other off, during conversations, trying to make your own points over the other person is a sign that there's something wrong with the communication. Or on the other hand, the communication being one-sided. Now, this is a sign that one person is dominating in the relationship. One person is dominating the conversations in the relationship, which is actually a red flag. It's a power dynamic thing, in power imbalance thing. So you want to make sure that you look into these things. Now, I want to quickly share with you some reasons why, people might interrupt during conversation so that you can identify yours or your partners, and you can begin to work on them. Okay. Now, one of the reasons might be passion or enthusiasm. Okay, sometimes when we are passionate about a certain topic, we talk over each other, we cut the other person off just to quickly, make ourselves heard because we're excited, we're passionate. Now, while that is not a good habit, it's quite understandable, but continuously doing this can, break down or cause unhealthy communication in that relationship. Another thing is misunderstandings, and I sort of talked about it before. Sometimes when we are misunderstanding somebody, we sometimes interrupt them to say, sorry, I don't get you, can you come again? Oh, sorry, what did you mean when you said this? Sorry, I'm not following. Those kinds of interruptions like that, can actually affect the communication in the relationship. Yes, you might not understand what they're saying, that's why you're interrupting. But sometimes, like I said before, if we listen intently, we'd see that we're probably saying the same things. Patience is required in communication. Another reason might be habits. Some people have formed the habits over time. Something you do not correct will fester and fester and fester, and over time it will start to affect the communication in that relationship. Maybe it started as a simple thing and then it now became a habit. So you want to check it, right now, because it might be affecting the communication in your relationship. Now, another thing might be impatience. I said it before that patience is required during communication. Patience is required. One of the strong virtues, one of the strong signs of love is patience. Impatience is a sign of disrespect. So when you are impatient and you're disrupting the conversations, interrupting your partner, it just shows that you don't particularly have respect for that partner. Another reason might be power dynamics, like I mentioned before. Maybe somebody in the relationship is dominating, is more controlling, tries to manipulate conversations to go in their directions, so interrupting conversations to make sure that the conversations go in their own favor. It might be a reason why, you interrupt conversations. Another thing might be cultural or social influences. Now, I understand now that some people who were raised differently, we're all from different backgrounds, okay? So, I mean, I'm Nigerian and I know about some parts of Nigeria called Warri, where people, they can be very loud and, wah, 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 and things like that. No offense intended, but, just based on observation. Now, I've heard that if you marry a Warri person, of course, area, they will dominate conversation. So it might just be a cultural thing. It might be an upbringing thing. It might just be a learned habit from childhood. Okay, so you might want to look into these things because they might be affecting the flow of the communication in the relationship. And then the last one would be emotional reactivity, reacting emotionally. Some people get frustrated during conversations and stop, stop, stop. No, 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 that's not how it went. That's not what I said. Things that they start to react with so much of their emotions. They get easily irritable and things like that. So you want to look into these things and see to it that it is fixed, that it is corrected, so that it's not affecting the communication in the relationship. Now, in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 19 says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. If we go by these biblical codes, trust me, relationships will work. The Bible is filled with so many templates on how to treat our partners, how to communicate, how to show love to one another. If we just go by this, precepts, that the Bible has set and highlighted for us, it really, really helps us. Number 4 sign that the communication in relationship might be poor is lack of emotional support. Now, this is a very sensitive matter. If the conversation in a relationship feels cold, unsympathetic, emotional distant in a way, it just shows that something is wrong. And in many cases, it might be that one or both partners have their hearts away from that relationship. What do I mean? Maybe they have, over time decided to take their hearts out of that relationship. Okay, so what their partner is getting is their physical self without their heart, without their emotion. One of or both partner has decided to be emotionally distant, emotionally unavailable, and this is not good. This could also show a sign that one or both partners are distracted by other third parties. Other third parties might even be love interests, so you want to pay attention to this. And one of the ways to fix this is to actually sit down as a couple and clear the air. Talk about your observations, fix it, clear the air. Now, the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 5, the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. In this case, you need to sit down and talk things through. It's very, very important. If you have noticed lack of emotional support in your relationship, it's a clear sign that either your partner or you are distracted by a third party. You're giving your attention to a third party, or you have blocked out from that relationship, maybe due to resentment, bitterness, unforgiveness, unresolved conflict, emotional wounds that have been caused by that partner. It happens. I mean, I've heard stories where people said, well, we're just roommates now. I don't care much what he does or what he says or what she says, because she has hurt me so much and I've backed up. These things happen. So you might be telling them about something that hurts you so much, and they might just be stoic, like, okay, okay, it's well. Trust me, they didn't even connect to what you were saying. So this kind of thing requires a sit down and talk. It requires you to sit down and have this conversation before that relationship completely packs up. Okay, so because of time, I will stop here, but tomorrow we'll have a part 2 of this conversation. Okay, thank you so much for giving me your time. I really appreciate you. Now, if you have not subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? I'm your Padio. Subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe. I'm giving you juices here and there on how to, fix your marriage, fix your relationships. These are not things that you want to play with. So subscribe, invite your friends to subscribe as well. Share my video, please, so that more people can see it. Leave me a comment. I want to see your comment. Engage in this conversation. Whatever you want to say, I'll be reading my comments and I'll be happy to see your comment as well. And before I let you go, we have an event coming up on the 28th of June 2025. It's called Singles Hangout 6. Please check the description corner to see the link, to tap the link where you can register to attend this event. This event is only 5,000 Naira. Now, it's not about the money. So we've had 5 successful editions and we've had them for free. However, over time, we have noticed some level of entitlement mentality. Now, I do not want to go into the details because of time, but Singles Hangout is not just only to give you guidelines to having a successful marriage or relationship. No, we also intend to fix certain characters. We intend to help people develop in their character. And if we are preaching, taking care of your spouse, getting involved in making sure that your relationship or your marriage is healthy, we also believe that we should not be causing more problems for you by, encouraging entitlement mentality. That is the reason we have asked you to pay a token of 5,000 Naira. 5,000 Naira, in my own opinion, is relatively small, but we're just asking for a token to show your commitment, So that's what we're asking for. So please do go, right now to the description corner and tap it to register to attend this event. And I'll be happy to see you there. Thank you so much. And bye for now. I remain Grace Renner.